Good afternoon, everyone. This is Maysoon Barber, Executive Director at Fatima bint Hazza Foundation. I'm pleased to welcome you today to our talk. I would like first to welcome and mention all partners in this initiative: A&B Creative Agency Paris, Shidulai Shwavinar Shangashta, Bangladesh, UAE University, Manipal University for Higher Education in Dubai, American University of Sharjah, and Fatima bint Hazza Foundation. First, let's kickstart with this short film, just to put things in perspective, and we will start right away. When we talk about climate change as a global issue, we feel very small. How to build awareness among the UAE youth by connecting the youth to a reality. Rising water level is already a concern for some countries, but it is even more critical in Bangladesh, drastically exposed to monsoon rains. Floods are becoming more frequent, more intense, and less predictable, making it challenging for the youth to access school and get an education. With the help of several stakeholders, a UAE initiative was designed to raise awareness about floods by challenging UAE architecture students from 3 leading universities to research, brainstorm, and design a sustainable solution for the youth impacted by floods in Bangladesh. From architects to NGO leaders, students continue to learn from the project's experts throughout their journey and get inspired to refine their ideas and cultivate their findings. The key question asked to the UAE youth is, what solutions can you design to defy floods and make education accessible? When we discuss climate change, numbers and science alone are not enough to motivate young people and to get them involved. But when we make them work together on such an instrumental cause, they feel more related and empowered to effect change. Today, we will be telling a powerful story where youth participate to address climate change while setting clear and realistic goals. By posing a creative challenge around a global problem across 3 UAE-based universities, this UAE youth competition attracted proposals from architecture students that looked at solutions to defying floods and deploying their education and research at the service of other vulnerable communities. I would like to express my pleasure working with our partners, with our mission to contribute to the youth in the UAE and the region. Socially impactful innovation is at the heart of every initiative I engage or partner with. This initiative enables the youth to feel part of the solution making, contributing to the betterment of other vulnerable communities. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Mourad Ben Ayed, Strategy Director at A&B Creative Agency Paris. Good afternoon, Mourad.
Hi, Maysoon. Thank you very much. Hi.
Thank you, Mourad. Mourad, I would like to ask you on employing climate change and linking it to education. Can you please share with us today your approach?
Thank you, Maysoon. First of all, if I go back to this video, you have highlighted a very interesting point. There is a problem of scale. So climate change is a global issue that is already affecting many lives. But we feel small, as highlighted in the video, and we feel that this problem can only be resolved usually from the top. So when I said from the top, is government, policymakers, large companies. But we know that contributions can also be made from the bottom. What is the bottom? Bottom is today architecture students of the UAE who can contribute by developing new adapted solution. And this is the bottom-up approach, obviously with the research up to the implementation. But one approach for our students to understand the magnitude of this climate change impact is by connecting the students, our students, with a reality where local communities in Bangladesh are threatened by both rising sea levels and heavy rains. And this, unfortunately, contributes to more floods, more frequent floods in Bangladesh.
Yes, Mourad. So actually, The reality is this situation actually disrupts the lives of many, including the youth who can't get education, correct?
Exactly. In fact, I wanted to include some numbers in there, just to understand this magnitude. So we're talking about every year in Bangladesh, in fact, 90 million people who are impacted by rising water. 20 million, in fact, are living in flooded area. Among those 20 people, 15 million people are displaced in the short term. And 5 million have to stay as they have no alternative. So here is only what we see here, what we're going to see with the approach from the students. We focus on a case on Bangladesh, but we decide to focus precisely on a specific context with its own condition and a specific river in Bangladesh to have a more obviously focused solution. And again, to make sure that the students are connected with the reality for their understanding. But obviously you can imagine that this reality of floods is happening frequently in other countries in Southeast Asia. We have the same thing as well in Africa, where displacement, loss of land and income, and lack of access to education, this is what we're focusing on, are few of the outcomes. So in our case, we decide to focus on how we can help the youth in Bangladesh continue to get access to education. And this is our focus today.
On the note of focus, Mourad, can you please discuss the key multi-stakeholder model or approach in both UAE and Bangladesh?
Thank you, Maysoon. We're talking about, you refer to this bottom-up approach. Again, to make an impactful initiative, we have decided to partner with multi-stakeholders. So this initiative involves 4 groups of stakeholders. The first one is a non-profit organization between Bangladesh and the UAE. So obviously they have different objectives. Objective is to make an impact, to making sure that the communities are less affected or can adapt to the situation. The second group, of course, that we have is 120 students from 3 universities in architecture. What is interesting, of course, in this challenge is this challenge, in fact, is part of their curriculum. So this started in September and will end in December. And we'll reward the best in Jan 2021. As a third group, part of the stakeholder, we have invited experts to join since September, obviously to share some insights and inspire the students. It's, of course, we've realized this when we wanted to launch this in August. It is difficult for the students to connect without having some insights from different experts in Bangladesh and in the UAE. And finally, as a fourth group of stakeholder, we have the local community. Local community is important, of course, and it will be, the students will be placing, in fact, or are placing right now, the community at the center of the design. This local community will be operating the new proposed solution. So it has to be something that they will understand because they will operate that. So it's kind of a value chain here where different stakeholders are involved for one objective. So beyond this challenge, this initiative shows a collaboration between different stakeholders. So we are here to create value and share that value. How, of course, this value is created, and it starts from the beginning, a research between students, discussion with the experts, with the professors as well, exchange between the 2 countries. We're planning to meet with the different stakeholders in Bangladesh, hopefully in Q1 next year. And to make sure that there is a possibility, obviously, to implement the design or the concept that will be selected by the jury in Jan 2021. So obviously, we hope to continue this dynamic until we reach the community. Yes.
Thank you very much, Mourad. Thank you. In fact, your discussion has set the framework for the questions I'd like to address to the students. Thank you for that. Representing the 3 participating universities, we have students from UAE University, Manipal, Dubai, and American University of Sharjah. And each representing student or students will discuss the approach that their universities have taken in this initiative. I'm going to start off by welcoming Maryam Al-Shahi and Atma Al-Zahiri from UAE University. So Maryam and Atma, Let's start by shedding the light on the fact that if we are to compare, just to get to put things into perspective, Bangladesh has roughly double the size area compared to the UAE, but almost 18 times the population. So I'm interested in finding out what challenges were you able to identify related to this vulnerable community, and what approach did UAE University take in that regard?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Maryam Ahmed Al-Shehi, and I will present with my colleague Aitma Al-Bahri. We are architecture engineering student. We're studying in United Arab Emirates University, and we are happy to be part of this competition. And thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Fatima Al-Bahri. It's an honor to be representing UAEU and to be part of this competition. Today, we will discuss some design solutions to defy flooding in Bangladesh. First, I would like to shed light on the importance of this competition. And as Sheikh Zayed said, the best way to build a society begins with building an educated citizen. And this is exactly the approach that the competition is taking to help the people in Bangladesh. So before starting with solutions, we actually have to understand what the problem is. Due to climatic changes and flooding, villages around the river in Bangladesh get completely destroyed. This forces the people or the villagers to move to other areas. And as a result of this, many children do not complete their education. That is why building a school in these villages is very, very necessary. However, it is challenging and requires innovative and sustainable design strategies to build a floating school that can adjust with the rising water levels. So we started with analyzing our site and understanding it better. And as Ms. mentioned, Bangladesh is about double the size of the UAE. It has a subtropical monsoon climate and it is characterized with very heavy rainfall. If we move closer here to our site will be in the Gohala and Dohali rivers. And our school will be targeting the 12 villages highlighted here in yellow. Some of our site challenges and restrictions, as mentioned before, is that we have rising water levels and flooding. Also, we have no electricity and power, and the sanitation in the area is basic. So from our analysis and research, we decided on some design requirements that we are going to implement as students. First is that we need to use local materials. This will both help in reducing the cost as well as showing the Bangladesh culture in our building. Second, we need to have a durable and lightweight structure that can adjust with the rising water levels in different parts of the year. We also need a renewable source of energy since electricity is not available. And we, of course, have to implement creative and environmentally friendly solutions in all aspects of our design. So we summarized our design approaches into 4 main categories. The first being recycled materials. So for our floating system, which is the system the school will be able to float on and rise with the rising water levels, we decided on using recycled plastic barrels, which have many advantages. First, they are easy to assemble and have a long lifespan. They also have a very, very excellent buoyancy function, and they are already locally available in Bangladesh, which is a very major advantage. For the cooling strategies, we decided to use an eco-friendly cooler using plastic bottles. So the hot air will be entering these plastic bottles and will leave with a higher velocity. This will result in a sense of cooling to the targeted space. Then moving to local materials. All our building components will be made of local materials. For the structure, we will have a timber structure made of the sal and shatam tree, which are most used in Bangladesh. They will have an efficient structural performance and they can withstand the climatic conditions in Bangladesh. For all the other walling and roofing materials, we will use bamboo since it is light, flexible, and locally available. Moving on to renewable energy, we actually compared between different types of renewable energy, including solar and wind energy. And we decided on choosing solar energy since it will produce, it will be more efficient and it will produce more energy in Bangladesh since it has a high peak sun hour and a high sunlight intensity. It is also cheaper. Finally, for the water management. In the water management, we actually have two main problems. The first one is where will we get our water supply from? The second one is how will we treat the wastewater since we do not want to contaminate the river. For the water supply, we decided to integrate a rainwater collection system in which rainwater will be collected in a tank and it will be used as the main water supply for our school. Regarding the wastewater management, wastewater will be divided into two, which is grey water and black water. Grey water, which is coming from the sinks, will be purified through 3 filtration chambers and then will be reused in the toilets. For the black water treatment system, the black water will be treated biologically, where bacteria will be feeding on the wastes, and then the treated black water will be discharged. Thank you very much, and we welcome any questions.
Thank you very much. It's worth mentioning that today's presentations reveal only the concept design or the macro design. In other words, as you're aware from our introduction today, this is a competition. So there's a certain limitation to how much the students can share in their presentation. We wanted the students to reveal what approach the universities are taking without jeopardizing the winning places in the end of the competition. Thank you very much for the presentation, Maryam and Atma. I would like next to welcome Tayyiba from Manipal University. Tayyiba, as throughout the research that you had to conduct, of course, at the prior of this initiative, you've come to learn that climate change is responsible for economic inequality in emerging parts of the world. The gap between the economic output of the world's richest and poorest countries is 25% larger today than it would have been due to climate change. So I know in your research you have given special focus to sustainability and you try to propose solutions to adapt to climate change. Can you please share with us your presentation, explain to us what sustainable solutions have you provided and are they achievable really?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. In answer to that, I would like to share my presentation. Is it visible?
Yes.
Perfect. So a very good afternoon to one and all present here today. My name is Tayyiba Osmani. I'm a third-year Bachelor of Architecture student, and it is my greatest pleasure to be here on behalf of my university, the Manipal Academy of Higher Education, Dhabi. I still remember the day we students first received the brief for the Floating Schools program. We were excited to be a part of an initiative which could potentially allow us to contribute towards the betterments of others. We were inquisitive. As architecture and design students, we have never really received a project quite like this one. A brief that pertains to not only boat building, but engineering both at the mechanical and biochemical level. So to design a space that allows the growth and education for a range of different ages. I'm sure we can all agree that the early schooling phase plays quite an important role in the development of an individual. So to design a floating school means to acknowledge that fact, while also making sure that the children of these flood-stricken families are allowed access to education, as Ms. Barber put in her video. So the Floating School Initiative not only highlighted the importance of sustainable building for us, but it also pushed us to acknowledge that coming from a place of privilege essentially means acknowledging that fact while using the resources at hand to assist those which wouldn't have easy access to the same. So with that being said, this first initial slide just includes a few keywords which we would use to sum up our design process and design thinking. So when designing floating schools, we want them to be user-friendly. We want them to be safe for the children. Sustainable building, we want to utilize renewable energy, functionality, and a key element in the concepts our students have chosen is biophilic architecture, which I'll get to later. And lastly, but certainly not the least, we want the boards to have an element of fun for the children. So getting right into that, to initiate our design process, we design students extensively researched the types of floating schools out there, because this is a project that has been done before, tried, tested, either successfully accomplished or failed. So we looked into both aspects, right? And we wanted to tackle the solution head on. And we researched everything about the topography of the site, the nature of the river water in Bangladesh, because the river is something that will essentially allow the success of our floating school, but it could also pose as a challenge since the water is quite unpredictable, right? So all of that was taken into account in our site analysis. We also looked into the age and cultural demographics of Bangladesh's inhabitants. We wanted to include a lot of local sensibility and sensitivities towards the religious aspects of the area, as well as the cultural. And of course, there is much to be learned in both aspects. So keeping that in mind, the first picture is a quite simple sketch to understand. It denotes the types of aspects we included in our case studies and in our research, and the different aspects our students took inspiration from when building their concepts. And of course, we hope to use sustainable alternatives in terms of our board building. So in terms of materials, that means using materials like bamboo and timber, locally sourced. And in terms of renewable energy, of course, we hope to incorporate solar, wind panels, as well as water turbines to incorporate clean energy on the board. And as Ms. Barber well stated about my university's approach, we do acknowledge that even though we are building floating schools, we shouldn't be restricted to just providing education, but we should also try to incorporate ways to allow allowing the livelihood of those who have lost, for example, their farmland due to river erosion, riverbank erosion because of the floods. So we hope to incorporate floating gardens into our boards as well. So these are some of the initial concepts our students have gone with. As you can see, they make for quite some interesting forms, right? And connectivity is what group 3 had gone with. And you can see the loop sort of evolving to make a very nice, natural biophilic shape. Dolphin is what another group went with because they wanted to relate to the children who are ultimately their end users. The dolphin is a very creative, very playful creature. So they wanted to be able to design a boat which appealed to that sense in the children. Metamorphosis is another concept another group went with, which pertains to transformation. So they wanted to encourage growth in their children. As such, there are several concepts which we chose, and we do hope to do the cause justice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tayyiba. Thank you very much for the presentation. But in fact, it's been interesting, I'm guessing, from the feedback we received from several students. It's quite a change studying the conventional architecture, the architecture assigned in your curriculum. And then the fact that this initiative has been integrated into the curricula of those universities, a step I think we can all take pride in. But so it's an interesting dynamic to see how you shift your mindset from working on buildings to work on boats. And I think in your case, you're doing the vertical studio. It's engagement of 2 years of students of 2 different years, correct?
Exactly. Peer assessment as well.
Yes. So thank you very much again for your presentation, Tayyiba. Moving on, I have Sarah Al-Dulaimi from the American University of Sharjah. And Sarah, on the note of conventional architecture and floating architecture, I'd like to ask you, has it been challenging planning floating structures as opposed to conventional architecture? And how do you support your proposed design?
Hello, Maysoon. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sarah Al-Dulaimi, and I am a 4th-year architecture student from the American University of Sharjah. So, first of all, In order to gain a deeper understanding of the living conditions of the community, we analysed the region and we found that 85% of Bangladesh's rural population are subsistence farmers, which means that they rely on the land for their own food production. This dependency on the river, combined with the flooding situation, indicates that the majority of the rural population are at risk of food insecurity, have less access to education, and have less developed infrastructure. On top of this, farming provides 60% of the country's GDP, meaning that the economy is severely hindered during the flooding season. So these conditions inspired us to create a space that can provide the locals with agricultural education and research, allowing them to adapt to the flooding situation, as well as creating a safe space for the community during the flood. So in order to do this, we first focused on enhancing the boat designs of the region to better understand the available construction methods and resources. In this small project, our class members all tackled different functions within each boat to look at a wide range of possibilities, yet always taking into consideration what is achievable and sustainable in the region. So in this boat design, one of my classmates exploited bamboo, which is a sustainable and locally sourced material, and used this as an all-in-one structure for a library boat, which the walls create shelving, seating, and windows all in one gridded system. In this second design, the playground boat, my classmate exploited the flexibility of bamboo to create a playful structure that the children can use as a playground. In this third design, the boat was repurposed into a laboratory, allowing the students to analyze the river better and understand their surroundings. And finally, in this fourth one, the use of fabric as a wall creates interesting lighting conditions for it to be used as a theatre boat. So throughout this small preliminary project, we were better able to understand the limitations within the region and what is actually possible. Now zooming out to the scale of the community, we propose an agricultural research and education centre in a community space, which acts as a safe haven during floods. So in the end of the day, we can't fight the problem of flooding or get rid of it. We can only provide solutions to adapt. So what are some of these solutions? We came up with three main possibilities. In one of these strategies, my classmates built off of precedents and recycled empty water barrels to use underneath the structure, which allows the whole building to float on water and move with the river. In another strategy, some of my classmates decided to shape the earth and form large earth mounds, which can carry the center above the highest flood mark. And finally, in this third strategy that some of us use, we elevated the building above the highest flood mark using sustainable materials such as bamboo and ensuring that the project will never flood. So these drawings illustrate our work in progress as we work through some of these ideas. Moving on to renders, we can see how some of these strategies translate into real-life occupiable structures. So with the case of the floating foundations underneath the structure, the building is able to move with the river, and the result is a direct connection between the water and the center, making it very easy for the boats to dock inside the center and accessible from the river. In this second strategy, where my classmates molded the earth, we can see that this reads as if the building is one with the earth, creating an interesting dialectic between land and water, and easy access from the nearby road. Finally, with the case of the elevated structure, though there is no real integration between the water and the project, the structure reads as a delicate floating object above the landscape and provides wide views to the surroundings, as well as a structurally sound place from the flood for the locals to gather in should they need to. Though there are within the class a wide range of ideas, we all share the same goal, which is to create a piece of architecture that caters to the community and that they are able to practically benefit from. This project as a whole has been very enriching for us, and I personally benefited a lot from exploring floating structures and the idea of building on water, as opposed to the conventional building on land. And this competition gave us the opportunity to use architecture to benefit the lives of people in vulnerable communities and to put ourselves in other people's shoes. And we're really excited to see where this takes us. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Sarah. I think construction on water is going to be the way forward. It's only a matter of time. I mean, when we look at 75% of the world's ever-growing mega cities actually located in delta areas, we know that floating structures is the future, if not happening already, different parts of the world. Thank you again, Sarah. The question and answer is open. Please send your questions and answers to the students. Gonna give just a few seconds to see if we have any questions. So as I said before, the students in their presentations have been somehow reserved by sharing everything, because in the end of the day, this is a challenge. But each student today shared with us the approach that their university addressed this issue through. I would like to thank all of our speakers today. We truly consider this generation as the source of hope and the vehicle of change. And it's not a buzzword anymore. Climate literacy is more relevant than ever. And we seek through this affluent generation the power to catalyze positive change during this period of ecological and social change. As Mourad Ben Ayed mentioned earlier, a committee will meet in January 2021 to decide on the winning proposals. This is just the beginning. We will announce soon the next phase of this initiative in Bangladesh. Special thanks to all partners together. It's been our pleasure being with you today, and thank you very much.